Hi, this is the synthesis of Fragrant Esters lab. We're going to do a video on how this lab is done, and we're going to start with exercise 1. Okay, we're going to go over the materials list. Here's a Sharpie. We have a test tube holder. We have a plastic weight boat. For exercise 1, we're going to have a test tube rack with 3 test tubes. Okay. We're going to have multiple other test tubes with a 250 milliliter beaker. I have here another beaker for water. We have here our digital scale. And these are the chemicals we're going to be working with. It's the synthesis of Fragrant Esters kit. And in here we have methanol. We have ethyl alcohol, sulfuric acid, isoamyl alcohol, butyric acid, and I can't see what you are here. And we have acetic acid with a few pipettes in there. Okay. We have the burner fuel. We have a brazier to put the fuel in. And we have our burner stand. Okay. And that we're going to be using later. And finally, we have our gloves and our safety goggles. That's our safety equipment right there. Okay, right now we're going to focus on numbering the test tubes. This will be test tube 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Test tube 1. 2. 3. So we're going to have this 80 milliliter beaker full of filtered water to use for mixing in the test tubes. So we're going to start putting on our gloves. Alright, so 2 gloves for safety. Now our goggles for safety. Okay, so we're going to have this nice little bottle of acetic acid. I'm going to put 4 drops in each of these test tubes. So they're going to be 4 drops in test tube 1, 4 drops in test tube 2, 4 drops in test tube 3. Acetic acid, okay? Okay, so here we go. I'm going to put 4 drops in each test tube. Acetic acid. Drop. 2 drop. 3 drop. 4 drops. Okay. So again, 4 drops in test tube 2, 1 drop, 2 drop, 3 drop, 4 drop. And 4 drops of acetic acid in test tube 3. Cap this back up. Okay, acetic acid. Okay, so now we're going to put 5 drops of methanol. See, methanol into test tube 1. Okay, so now we're going to put 5 drops of denatured ethyl alcohol or ethanol into test tube 2. So we're going to grab one of these plastic pipettes. I'm going to drop some isoamyl alcohol from this test tube, or vial rather. There it is. That's in the pipette right there. So test tube 3, 5 drops of isoamyl alcohol. Test tubes have been incubating for about 5 minutes in hot water, so we just took this out and put it on the tray. Okay, next we're going to put 20 drops of water into each of the test tubes. Okay, so we're going to swirl these around, mix them up. So here we have test tube 1. I'm not sure what it smells like, but it smells very chemically. Like some sort of varnish or something. I don't know. I'm not even sure how to describe this thing. Smells like acetone a little bit. Like a weak acetone. Like a sweet acetone. Yeah. Smells like a sweet acetone. Now test tube 2. This one smells like pears. Test tube number 3. It's like overripe bananas. Okay, so that concludes exercise 1. We're going to move on to exercise 2. So for exercise 2, I already had test tubes that are numbered. That's 4. Number 6. Number 7. Okay, so now we're gonna put in some butyric acid in some of these test tubes. Okay, so 4 drops of butyric acid, 4 drops of butyric acid into test tubes 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so butyric acid into test tubes 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so we're going to have some gloves here. We're going to handle these things. Here's the butyric acid in the pipette. 4 drops and 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so next we're going to do 5 drops of methanol in test tube 4. So next we're going to do 5 drops of ethanol into test tube 5. Finally, we're going to do isoamyl alcohol, 5 drops into test tube 6. So now we're going to do 2 drops of sulfuric acid into test tubes 4, 5, and 6. So now we're going to agitate them. Now we're going to put this weighing boat on top of the scale. We're going to tare that. So now we're going to measure 0.2 grams of salicylic acid. So now we have test tube 7. We're going to put the salicylic acid inside test tube 7. This is the salicylic acid in test tube 7. We're going to add 5 drops of methanol. 5 drops of methanol into test tube 7. Okay, so now we're going to put 2 drops of sulfuric acid into test tube 7. Okay, so there's the brazier again with the burner fuel. Okay, like before when we were doing exercise 1, we have the Bunsen burner with the beaker of 50 milliliters of water, and we're going to make that thing boil, and we'll come back to that later. So we have test tube 4, 5, and 6 in the hot water incubating for about 5 minutes. So now we're going to add 20 drops of water into all the test tubes. So now we're going to smell test tube 4. Wow. Smells like nail polish. So now we're going to smell test tube 5. Test tube 5 smells like some sort of gum. I don't know. Kind of. This is the test tube 6. So test tube 6 smells like some sort of artificial cherry for some reason. Not too sure if it is or not. It smells like artificial cherry. So, test tube 7. You can smell what it's like. Okay, so test tube 7 smells like smells very minty, kind of like Ben Gay. Yeah, it's got that really minty flavor. Okay, so that pretty much concludes our lab, and that is the synthesis of fragrant esters.